What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly updates. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream here on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Join if you can. It's always a fun time hanging out and talking cars with all of you. And I also want to mention, of course, the biggest news this week, at least in my opinion, was the new Scout that debuted, the Traveler and the Terra. I was fortunate enough to do an in-person tour of those vehicles and give you a whole rundown of all the specs and everything we know. So definitely check out that video at the end of this one. I will link it at the end here for you to check that out if you haven't seen that already. But very impressive vehicles. I was really surprised. It is actually surpassed all of my expectations, and I think they played it perfectly, in my opinion. Very well done. But anyway, moving on to the other news here this week. So first off, Subaru this week revealed more info about their hybrid system that they announced in Japan back in May. This new info is kind of interesting. So first, they say that it'll debut first in Japan, which makes sense, but first in the Crosstrek. And they kind of hinted at a Crosstrek powered by hybrid stuff earlier this year. But here in the States, we were promised the Forester hybrid first. That's the only one we've actually been promised at all. Is they told us back at the LA Auto Show last fall that a hybrid Forester was coming whenever they revealed the new one. So I'm assuming we will still get, hybrid Forester first, but I'm assuming this Crosstrek will come very shortly after, considering it is, I think, actually their best seller right now. So, we'll see. But anyway, as far as this whole setup goes, it continues to use a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter boxer 4, so their bigger boxer motor, that they say has been specifically developed for electrified applications. But mysteriously, it does only 158 horsepower and 154 pound-feet of torque, which is 24 less horsepower and 24 less pound-feet of torque than that regular 2.5-liter naturally aspirated motor that, does like 184 horsepower and the other stuff. So, I'm not sure why it lost power. Seems like the wrong direction to be going in, but it does combine with two electric motors, both up front, one serving as a generator for the other, which is a traction motor that does 118 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque on its own. So I'm hoping that this combo does give us something over, 200 horsepower. Obviously, the electric motor doesn't make peak power when the gas engine does, especially this gas engine. They say, I think it makes that peak of like 158 horsepower at like 6,000 RPM or something. So, don't expect those two numbers to add up perfectly, because with the electric motor kicking in at 0, we will see, where that motor kind of peaks out and how that all plays out. But hopefully it'll be more punchy than the regular 2.5-liter is. But anyway, it's a series parallel hybrid system, and they say that the electric motor can propel the car on its own in a wide range of situations, and it's powered by a new long-lasting 1.1 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery that resides under the cargo floor. And Subaru claims that you can do extended EV driving. They must be measuring extended EV driving in, I don't know, yards. I don't know, like, how can they say extended in any form? But, so that's what they're claiming here. And unlike their technology partner Toyota, though, the one key difference here is this system does retain its physical all-wheel drive system with a drive shaft, run to the back there. And so it does all this power and, keeps the whole vehicle going with a 16.6 gallon fuel tank that produces a range of about 621 miles on the very easy WLTC test cycle. But that's more than any Subaru ever. And they say part of that is thanks to a claimed 20% increase in efficiency over the current JDM hybrid system that has been around the e-Boxer thing they've been doing over in Japan for a few years now. So this is even an improvement over that. And the other perk here is that having the electrification here for the Crosstrek means that you get a 1500 watt outlet in the cargo area to power, a wide variety of things that Subaru adventurers most likely would like to have power for. So now they'll have that. It'll be arriving at Japanese dealers this December, but it'll be coming at some point here next year, I'm guessing, but it's still complete silence. Also complete silence as far as the hybrid Forester, which again was promised almost exactly a year ago, like 11 months ago. And we haven't heard anything. At least I haven't heard anything. I haven't read anything, seen anything. I have no clue, when that's even coming. Again, I'd like to think next year, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we get this stuff sooner rather than later, because Subaru needed hybrids here in America yesterday, or like a long time ago. So, I don't know. Hopefully this comes quickly. We'll see. But Maybe we'll see or hear more at the LA Auto Show here, a full year after they announced it. Maybe they'll finally give us an update. We'll have to see, but interesting to see that. One other Subaru debut this week was the BRZ Series.Purple. And, we've all seen this movie before. They, always do these series, various different colors. And yeah, surprisingly, purple hasn't been done yet. And I think it looks very good. This color is called Galaxy Purple Pearl. And yeah, I don't know if those pictures are amped up at all, but it really looks good based on those pictures. It's honestly one of the most beautiful shades of purple I've ever seen in a car. I think it even beats plum crazy in my opinion. But anyway, it's paired with gray accents on the inside, and it also gets flexible V-bars in the engine bay made by STI to help with torsional rigidity slightly. And there's also an STI short throw shifter, STI shift knob, and starter button. All to remind you that you have an STI strut bar under the hood and a short shifter and no actual other STI parts, because it's of course all mechanical carryover other than that. So they're all manual transmissions though, surprisingly, and only 500 will be made. This also, I think, was an American release. I'm not sure about other parts of the world. I didn't see anything specified as far as global stuff, but only 500 made, I'm assuming, for North America. It's based on the limited trim, so it'll start at $36,615, including destination. Which, is a little bit of a premium over a regular one, but it's limited and it is a very good color. I'm not usually one to, go for special editions that are just a color, aside from the bullet, which I think had a little bit more stuff to it, but this is literally just a color and accents on the inside. But, I don't know. That is, if I was shopping for a new BRZ, I'd probably try and go for one of those if you don't mind spending a little bit of extra money. But anyway, very cool to see that. And late last week, Porsche revealed the 992.2 refresh here for the 911 GT3. And again, this came out last week, so I'm sure many of you have already seen and heard all the coverage about this. But for those of you who haven't, I'm going to do a quick rundown here. So, 2025 model year here. Thankfully, it keeps the glorious 9,000 RPM red line, the 502 horsepower flat 6, but it does have more emissions equipment on it, holding it back performance-wise because of that Euro 7 stuff here coming in next year. And so it actually, to compensate, Porsche added cams from the GT3 RS, revised heads, new throttle bodies, and oil coolers. And so they added all those things just to maintain the exact same horsepower as the old one. Surprisingly, that you would think all those mods would get you more, but maybe that emission stuff is a real drain. I don't know, but you can also thankfully still get it with a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed PDK. But the manual's even better this year thanks to a shorter final drive, which is the one thing everyone wants out of Porsches and swaps in shorter final drives all the time. And they always had really tall gearing, so shorter gearing. This sounds really good, but it gets better. So the front suspension also gets new links that improve downforce and brake cooling and reduce dive. The slightly tweaked headlights also allow them to put in wider air inlets in the front for better aero. And out back, it gets slight changes to the diffuser, engine cover, air inlets, little slight design tweaks we saw on other 992.2s. There's also new wheels as standard that drop 3.3 pounds of unsprung weight, and they're wrapped in new Michelin tires that are 255 in the front and 315 wide in the rear. If you want even more weight reduction, you can now get the Weissach package that previously was only available on the RS models, and that swaps in carbon fiber for the roof, anti-roll bars, drop links, shear panel, end plates, and mirror caps, and allows you to option on the magnesium wheels that you can get on these. And with all the lightweight options, the GT3 comes in at 3,130 pounds. So you can also get the touring package still, and it's being rolled out right alongside the regular GT3 here. And that gives you the more subtle look, of course, with no wing. The touring also gets some of the carbon fiber suspension bits from the Weissach, along with a body-colored version of the carbon fiber roof, the magnesium wheels, and even a shorter shift lever from the 911 ST that's exclusive here to the touring version. So potentially even a little bit more desirable than regular GT3, not only just because, I think a lot of people are a fan of this more subtle look, but because you actually get a better shifter here. And on the inside, the Touring also opens up the option for a back seat for the first time on a GT3, which, especially as someone like myself who, has a kid they want to bring along, you'd always had to just go for a regular 911 or a turbo or whatever, but now to get that goodness of a GT3 and bring the whole family along potentially, is even better. So that's awesome. And all GT3s also get the new digital gauge cluster and other tweaks we see again from other 992.2 911s that we saw, a couple of months ago. But thankfully, this one also retains an ignition switch instead of the push button starter that we saw introduced here on the new 911s. So that's great. You can also option in a new front bucket seat. And all of this does sound fantastic, but the one big downside here is that prices have jumped up massively, going from $171,500 for the 2023 version to now starting at $224,495. That is arguably the largest price increase, at least as far as like hypercar, ultra rare kind of stuff goes. I mean, as far as regular production stuff, that has got to take the crown for that. And, a lot of people were really upset about this, or just like grappling with this giant price increase I saw elsewhere, in the media this past week. But to me, I don't know the reason why they did this, but my hunch is that Porsche read the room and they saw that all of these dealers are charging giant amounts of money on top of GT3s, and yet they still couldn't build GT3s fast enough. So why should the dealers have all the profit and Porsche not pad their profit margins? If people are clearly, paying 50 grand more anyway, then why not take some of that yourself and try and take a bite out of the margins from the dealers? And maybe the dealers will just keep on keeping that buffer going and, push it even higher and really test the limits of how much people are willing to pay for a GT3. I think Porsche is approaching Ferrari levels of exclusivity with getting on the list, getting the opportunity to buy one. It's not quite that bad from what I've heard, but it seems like that's the direction they're going. And so, Porsche can pretty much name their price with these things, especially in these, end of combustion era days that we're living in. Why not capitalize? It helps them to finance the EVs and the other stuff they need going forward. And again, this is what happens when people pay markups. So anyone complaining about this, blame the people that pay markups. And if you've ever paid a markup, that's contributing to this. If I was a manufacturer, absolutely, I would do the same thing. And the second I saw dealers doing markups and people still buying, then that's a clear sign you need to increase your price tag. And this is just another reason why dealers generally just suck, because it just ruins it for everybody, because then it's like, okay, yeah, let's pad everyone's corporate profits, all of us have to pay more. Again, we're talking about rich people buying Porsches, so it's very little sympathy, but still just that fundamental idea of like, Porsche could make it for way less, but people are willing to pay more. And that's supply and demand and, capitalism, I suppose, but it just sucks that, all of this comes with other people lining their pockets, except the people that are, wanting the actual stuff here. So anyway, end of the rant there for that. But, a very awesome car for sure. And, it's still such a unique experience having the manual, the high red line. You can't get that anywhere else outside of, the multi-million-dollar hypercars. So, as terrible as it is to have a huge price increase, I still think, again, what else are you going to buy for that price that does that? So, totally justified, I think. And, I'd love to try one of those someday. But moving on here, just last week, Mini revealed the electric version of the new John Cooper Works of the Cooper here. And this week, they revealed the gas-powered version in both coupe and convertible form. So, like we already knew, it does, in fact, drop the manual transmission option, like all other Minis. But it does run a dual clutch automatic now, so hopefully it's just a little bit more sporty. Power wise, it still runs the BMW B48 2-liter turbo 4 motor. Then in this tune, still does just 228 horsepower, but does up the torque by 44 pound-feet to 280 pound-feet of torque now. So it provides a 6.1 seconds 0 to 62 mile per hour time in the coupe, 6.4 in the convertible. They also get unique wheels and sportier tires for better handling. On the outside, they get also the sportier styling, of course, including extra air inlets there in the corners with little vertical red bars. And there's also a pretty cool single exit exhaust there as well. And like I talked about last week, the convertible just puts the new styling and interior on the old car, essentially. Hence the older taillight shape there. They said that was just, part of the cost effectiveness they needed in order to make the convertible a reality again. And so, it's one of those things, beggars can't be choosers there, but, it's just a little unfortunate it doesn't have all the other bones that are new like the coupe. But anyway, inside it does get sportier seats, steering wheel, and the red and black theme, and it starts at $39,195, including destination for the coupe, and $44,695 for the convertible. And that's also like almost five grand upcharge just for a convertible. So that's, especially an old-ish convertible, seems kind of strange there's that much of a premium. But anyway, if you don't need the extra power, you can save a few bucks going for a regular Cooper S, which now offers a JCW appearance package that almost is a carbon copy of this. It's just that you get different wheels and tires and obviously the less horsepower, but you can kind of get a half JCW, which also kind of limits the appeal of the full-blown one. If you only get a few extra horsepower that you could easily get in the aftermarket anyway. But I digress. Anyway, but cool to see that has returned. Dodge had a surprising announcement here this week. And for once, it's good news, at least for the first news story this week. We got more Stellantis stuff coming after. But they announced that they will begin installing solid-state batteries from one of their partner companies called Factorial in Charger EV prototypes in 2026. So there's not too much info on them, and it's only going in prototypes, and there wasn't any specific timeline as far as when it would actually roll out to consumer vehicles. I think this is just going to be a test bed for now, but they're putting them in an actual production car, not some mule, and it's going to, I guess, inform them about the viability of using this in the real world for consumer vehicles. And so I mean, I'm sure there's other companies that are already, driving around prototypes with solid-state batteries elsewhere. But, this could mean that Dodge has a potential to maybe leapfrog everybody a little bit with batteries. And if this does work out and work out quickly enough, if everyone else talking, I know Nissan, Toyota, and all those, I think, are talking about like early 2030s for solid-state. If Dodge can beat them to the punch here and get it out, before 2030, that could be huge, especially if it is, top-notch solid-state stuff that delivers on all the promises we've heard about solid-state batteries for many years now. So we'll see, but we know the battery tech's advancing really quickly in a variety of different chemistries and types of batteries, so we'll see, what dominates here in the next few years, but really cool to hear that. And maybe this could be an ace up Dodge's sleeve to give the Charger even more of an edge than it already has right now with smoking the Mustang and stuff, I'm sure, once they actually start hitting the streets. But of course, there's also some bad news for Stellantis here this week, and I feel bad. It's like I'm, kicking them while they're down here. But these are the stories, and so here we go. So first off, in Europe, they're preparing for the increased emission fines that are going to start happening here in January in the EU for not having a low enough fleet fuel economy average. So this problem isn't unique to Stellantis, of course, and Motor One previously reported that based on the first half of sales this year, only Tesla and the Geely Group had a low enough amount of emissions to not get fined. So the way that Stellantis and possibly other companies will deal with it is to produce less gas and diesel cars, and the Stellantis COO of Europe confirmed to Automotive News Europe this past week that they could cut production of the gas-powered stuff as soon as November. So they are deliberately going to limit gas production and gas sales and, keep a lid on it and hope that, enough people either go for the EVs or just tell people, look, you got to go somewhere else because we don't want to get fined. And I guess not selling cars is a better alternative than getting those fines, because I think the fines, they're very, very steep. And so I'm sure someone ran the math at Stellantis and said, yep, we're just going to quit selling people as many cars if if they don't want to go for the EVs. So that's kind of the situation over there in the EU currently. And so we'll see. I think that there's a chance, trying to look at the glass half full, that, maybe some people who are on the sidelines about the EV, maybe dragging their feet, didn't really have that much of an opposition. Maybe it did fit their life, but they're just like, now maybe this will kind of have some of those people say, okay, I need a new car. I can't get a gas one. There's some electric ones here, or go for another company and go for a competitor that does, balance those two things better. But, we'll see how that influencing of the market works out for the EU and see how the car companies fare as a result. But, I think all these companies are going to kind of be put in a vice here for a while until they improve those averages here. And so, stay tuned for probably more companies talking about the same kind of thing, most likely in the next, couple of months here. But very interesting to hear that first from Stellantis. Here in the States, the bad news for Stellantis is that they confirmed their plan to sell their Arizona proving grounds and will move out by the end of the year here. And so apparently this was already agreed upon in the 2023 UAW contract, an agreement that they all, agreed to after those strikes. So now it's becoming real, though, as they're, preparing to move out here. And so they did reiterate that they still have their Chelsea Proving Grounds in Michigan, and supposedly about 85% of all of their development, driving, and testing happens there anyway. So obviously the only thing they are missing is the hot weather component. And so for that, they'll actually be going to there's another Toyota facility in Arizona, and I guess they can just pay to get in there and do the stuff they need to do for that 15% of the time. So honestly, I mean, that sounds really smart. Why have a giant facility, assuming they actually have a buyer for it? But why keep this giant facility if you only do 15% of your work there, and you can, go pay someone else and use their space instead? It kind of makes sense. So, it's unfortunate they can't keep everything that they have, and there's even been talks that maybe their Auburn Hills headquarters could also be something that they sell off, eventually as well. But in the meantime, I think this actually makes sense, and hopefully it helps them to just be a leaner, smarter company with their money there. And there's some good and bad news for the Jeep Grand Cherokee here this week. So the good news is that the 2025 gets significant price cuts, with some trims up to $4,000 less than last year. And that's, if you follow the news for car news, every year when a new model comes out, or even just a refresh, or even just another model year that maybe has one or two tiny little changes, there's always a price increase. And even just to keep up with inflation every year, there's always little increases to price. It slowly marches upward. So for a car company to say not only is it not increasing, but it's going down, that's significant and really rare these days. And so that's, good to hear. Hopefully that does help Grand Cherokee sales a little bit more. Now, 4xe versions aren't getting a discount. They are staying exactly the same as 2024. Also still a win in my book. But, the real value is, I guess, going for those gas versions with the bigger discounts there. So the bad news, though, for the Grand Cherokee is that there are 0 changes for the 2025 model year. A lot of us were expecting there to be a refresh. There's been a bunch of prototypes running around with a new front end that's been camoed off, and I think some light tweaks to the back end as well. And we all thought that was coming for this model year. I mean, if that's not coming till 2026, that also doesn't help them, because I think, especially dealers are probably hoping for a refresh for the Cherokee. I mean, it still looks good, the Grand Cherokee, but, fresher, newer, always drives in people to the showroom to get the new look, make sure that everyone knows they have the new one with the new tweaks, so I'm sure this is a little bit of a disappointment to a lot of people, and hopefully it comes quickly. Maybe they do a 2025 and a half or something. I don't know. We'll see. But, also, they said as far as the other changes they announced for 2025, there's no powertrain changes. So Pentastar V6 does stick around. Of course, we heard previously Grand Cherokee L loses the V8 option for 2025 here. That has been confirmed. But other than that, everything is all the same there. So hopefully, again, price cuts help a little. I think you could probably argue they could use even more price cuts. And I hope that this kind of cut extends other brands within Stellantis and, again, gets even more aggressive. We'll see, but very interesting to see that. And very briefly, Dodge continues to roll out the special editions of the Durango Hellcat with these, last call, final edition kind of things, which they haven't officially announced those or said anything about those yet. I don't know if they're going to do that or when they're actually sunsetting these. I believe it's going to end at the end of this calendar year as far as production for the Hellcats, but I could be wrong because, again, they keep shifting that around with, Wrangler now having another final edition for 25 and stuff. But anyway, this Durango Hellcat last call, this other one's called the Brass Monkey. And so it's $113,720 and just gives you the unique exterior and interior color combos you see, and that's it. I really wonder at this point if any of these people that are buying these actually care about the color combos, or if they're just like, I just want one of the last Durango Hellcats, I'll grab it. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a really sweet car, but also at that price point, it's tough. And I'm actually going to have a review here very soon on the silver bullet version of the Durango Hellcat that I recently spent a little bit of time in. So stay tuned for that and more of my thoughts on that vehicle. But anyway, interesting to see that. Ford has made some notable changes to the Mach-E for the 2025 model year. And just like the Grand Cherokee, though, the Mach-E continues with the same styling. And I don't know if Ford's kind of copying the Tesla playbook here, because, I mean, Mach-E debuted at the LA Auto Show in 2019, at the end of 2019. So, I mean, we're talking 5 years of the same look. I know they kind of tweaked the headlights slightly back in, I think, 2023 or 2024. But, like, honestly, no one can really even tell the difference. I was expecting, some kind of refresh by now. Again, especially considering Mach-E sales are kind of weak. These improvements I'm about to talk about will certainly help things, I think, a little bit. But again, a fresh look, I think, is something that is really important for a lot of people. And so, yeah, it's kind of surprising. It's continuing with the same styling. But anyway, you can get a new sport appearance package for 2025, though, that gives you the GT's front end, along with unique wheels, and even the Brembo brakes, which kind of weakens the GT's appeal. I mean, yes, you don't get all the extra power. And I don't know why an appearance package gives you Brembo brakes, but that's how they decided to play it. And anyway, the more notable improvements here begin with it now getting a heat pump as standard for better efficiency in cold weather, which is certainly great, but the unfortunate part of that is that it reduces the frunk depth. And the pictures I've seen, it looks like it's about half as deep as before, and that's one of the things that was really good about the Mach-E, is it had a huge frunk, bigger than basically anything else aside from a Model Y, at least in that segment of vehicle. And so now, I mean, it's still bigger than, most of the others out there that have something the size of a briefcase, but this is, a downgrade, from a usability standpoint there. So it really comes down to, which thing you'd rather have, a heat pump or the bigger frunk. But it's unfortunate you have to choose between the two. Another nice improvement, though, is you can now finally get ventilated seats. They found a way to work them in here, I guess, because the seats look pretty much the same as before, but they're going to be standard on the premium to have that ventilation. So it's, aside from the base model, everything gets them too, which is great. They also got rid of the rotary gear selector and have a column shifter now instead, which is also kind of a surprising switch. I don't think anyone was really asking for, but it gives you some extra storage there in the middle, and column shifters are cool in my mind, so I'm, totally into that. And the 2025 Mach-E also introduces Blue Cruise 1.5, which finally does automatic lane changes. Previously in 1.4 and earlier, if you wanted to do that, you had to tap the turn signal stalk and then it would do it for you. And now it's going to do it fully automatically, just like Super Cruise. That's one of the things I love about Super Cruise, and why, in my opinion, it was still the best system, because you can just sit there and it does all the slicing and dicing through traffic for you. And now the Super Cruise or Blue Cruise system will do that as well. So that's great. Lastly, there's 3 new colors. There's Velocity Blue now this year, Velocity Blue Metallic, Desert Sand, and Molten Magenta Metallic Tinted Clear Coat. That's a long one. And there's also 3 new wheel designs as well. And it'll arrive at dealers in early 2025 and will start $3,500 cheaper than the 2024s as well. So, you get more stuff here for less money, a nice discount there again. So they'll be starting out $36,495, and I believe that's before incentives. I think it still gets $37.50 if I remember correctly. So I mean, with that discount, it is now basically right around Equinox EV, and that's good, because I mean, Equinox EV again has no frunk. Still doesn't have CarPlay or Android Auto, and now this kind of matches it with the ventilated seats. It's just missing the power closing glass roof. The glass roof in the Mach-E still are exposed to the elements there with the roof all the time. There's no cover, but aside from that, it's a nice improvement. I actually am really impressed with the 2025 Mach-E improvement. Just wish they would have kept the frunk the same size and packaged that better. And to end this week's news here on a good note for enthusiasts, back to Subaru, coming full circle here. Subaru confirmed to Kelley Blue Book that so far this year, 83% of WRX buyers went for the manual transmission, and that's up from, I think they said 78% last year, and this makes it apparently, supposedly, the highest manual take rate in the industry. I don't think they've checked with every single company. This is Motor One that was doing the reporting, I think, for this. But, it's 83% is, it's better than Mustang. It's better than, I think even Miata and BRZ and stuff like that. So really good. I think with the WRX in particular, though, it's inflated by the fact that the only other alternative is a CVT. And I've heard that it's a better CVT than the average CVT. I still have yet to try it. I keep begging for one and have never had a chance to get my hands on a CVT WRX. But, most people don't like CVTs, I think, generally speaking, at least enthusiasts. And so when you tell them it's either a CVT or a manual, you're going to have a higher manual take rate, I think. So I think Subaru's kind of doing that to themselves in a way. If they had a better automatic, I think the take rate would be lower. But I'm not complaining. I'm all for the Save the Manuals cause, and hopefully this tells Subaru this is a very clear sign that they either need a much better automatic to compete, or definitely keep churning out those manual WRXs as well, and that's something hopefully they will keep around as long as the WRX is gas powered. So we'll see, but really great to hear that. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Matt Maran Motoring Club. So we did have 2 new members that were able to join this past week, thanks to the very generous membership gifting that was done by Kyle and Linda Hamill in last week's live stream. So thank you so much to both of you for your generosity. I'm sure all the members that are able to join and also rejoin really appreciate your generosity there, and I, of course, very much appreciate the support as well. And so I want to give also a huge welcome here to David Barden and Romus13. So I hope you're both enjoying the perks here so far. And I'm looking forward to chatting with those of you that can make it into the live stream here on Sunday, where all those members do get that priority answering. And if you'd also like that priority answering and all the other perks that come with being a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please also leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.